Who got 8? I'm going high here. 8 or better. Raise your hand. Woo. Who got 4 or more armadillos?
I got 5.
Wow. Hey, you got to impress your friends. Hand up 2 files, please. 2 files. Nice job on the quiz. Hand up 2 files, please. This might have to go up on the wall. This might have to go up. As a warning to them. No, I don't.
You like mine? I don't know who put the second eye on the squid. There's that.
Why is, and then we have like, it looks like a snail.
Yeah, it's Drew's armadillo. I don't know.
Drew, it's out of armadillos, not snails.
I know, I was rushed.
I was rushed. Thank you. Thank you. Well done, everybody. Oh! I erased the picture. Who tried to stop a cannonball with their foot? At least according to my favorite story.
Oh.
Santa Ana.
Santa Ana.
Santa.
And it's one of those things. It might. Did we talk about his mustache, by the way, in here?
It's a great mustache.
Yeah, we voted on the mustache. Good. Okay. That's a key thing we had to do. And what else? Voted on the mustache. Oh, where's that?
Oregon Trail.
Huh?
We're gonna play Oregon Trail.
Oh, Oregon Trail. So here we go. Oregon Trail. So, Vitamin is the leader of the Oregon Trail. Yeah. So, we bought 5,000 pounds of food, but no wheels. So we're rolling the die, people.
This is the problem.
It's going to be a drag. But you know what? We got wrench.
What if we just use our children's wheels?
Okay, my seat just sunk. All right, there we go. All right, here we go. Space bar.
Let's go.
We're going to go to the first. Good. Good.
We don't have wheels.
Uh-oh.
Blizzard.
We got food though.
I thought I got 2,000 pounds of food.
Hey, it's warming up. It's warming up.
All right. Do we want to look around the river?
Yes.
Let's talk to one person. Can't afford to take the ferry.
Yeah, let's make our wagon. Let's not make our wagon.
Have to swim the animals. Huh.
Fun. No.
So let's go. Here we go. This is our choice now. 7.2 feet deep in the middle. What's our choices?
How tall are we?
So,
Do we have the money for it?
come on now. No.
Yeah,
We're rolling the die this whole trip. We're boarding it. We're gonna ford it, right? Who's
Yeah,
with me?
board the river. I'm with you.
Let's board it. Board it. Let's board it.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Board.
No, we're boarding.
Isn't this supposed to be like?
We made it.
No.
Oh! Wrench! No!
Six.
French person?
Yes. Well, we're going back. We're going back to Ohio, people. Poor Wrench. These Bug, Socks, and Sarah are still alive.
Socks and Sarah.
Who decided to use it?
Who? What? We clearly need them. I'm a lunatic. And I have plenty of money. We could have taken the ferry, but no. You guys wanted to board. And I'm saying, no, it's too dangerous.
I don't think we have a choice.
All right, so All right, we. Kind of bad now. I like the wrench. Wrench is a good wrench. Do we get to this?
We got to attend.
All right, so let's do that. Slave bar. Let's go and finish. All right. So we got the Alamo. They banned slavery. Santa Anna being the dictator. Who's head of the Texan Army?
Houston.
Yeah, Houston. They actually declared independence a little bit before the Battle of San Jacinto, but of course they had to defeat Santa Anna. This is the first Texas flag, and it kind of looks like the blue field, but of the American flag, but with one star. They caught, it kind of looks like the U.S. flag. That would be still is the flag of Texas. So now they call themselves the Lone Star State. And when the Civil War began, the Civil War originally started with a flag similar to this, a Bonnie blue flag they called it, but they would eventually go for this, for the national flag of the Confederacy, but with 11 stars. You probably think of the Confederate battle flag, but that's not the flag of the Confederacy. Yeah.
The three stripes that they made.
No, they just want a red, white, and blue. And, but from a distance, it looks just like a U.S. flag. It's from a distance. You might now guess the reason for the Confederate battle flag in the diagonal. So, the other big thing is, that was Tejas. But Texas claimed everything north of the Rio Grande River, which goes into Colorado. It's actually a really pretty small river. But the grand big river, but it's actually pretty small. So they claimed all this area. And so nobody wanted to talk about Texas, especially when they got to look at the Constitution. Here's the Texas, from the Texas Constitution. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? In fact, slave owners cannot free their slaves, their property, unless they ask the Congress, which is the state assembly. That's even a stricter constitutional protection of slavery than South Carolina. And that's the state that came in, and this could be many states. Texas has a complex history. By the way, what happened to the Tejanos? All of those people who helped the revolution. They were Mexican citizens. They just were completely mistreated. Most of the land was taken away by Texans, which are immigrants from the United States. That's what happened to the Tejanos, who fought for independence. So, you have to write this down. We already had this before. Martin Van Buren was elected. Remember, old Kinderhook, he's elected. And that was the same year that Texas won its independence. So I know we have to kind of overlap a little bit. But Van Buren's administration, we already know about Van Ruin's depression, right, the panic. He also did a sub-treasury plan to replace the Bank of the United States. It's a way to distribute currency through to the Treasury Department. They would set up branches in different places. It's actually a pretty decent idea, but they never fully realized it. They would try something like this all the way up until 1913, until the Federal Reserve was created. But Texas was always lingering. And Van Buren couldn't make a decision because Northern Democrats were opposed to bringing in this massive slave empire. And so the Democratic Party was split, and the Whigs were split. So everyone just acted like it didn't exist. His vice president was Richard Mentor Johnson, and I only put him on there for one simple reason. He would claim credit from the Battle of the Thames and killing Tecumseh. And so here's one of the first campaign slogans. They would do it in the form of a little song, and it's Rumsey Dumpsey, Rumsey Dumpsey, Rumsey Dumpsey, Colonel Johnson killed Tecumseh. Yeah, it kind of really flows, doesn't it? But I do like the Rumsey Dumpsies. They will get a little better. So in the election of the election of 1840 showed one very important thing. A crisis is coming to the country that can only be represented by this. And I will use any excuse to show this. battle is coming. All right, so the election of 1840. Any excuse. Huh? Some people go to chocolate. So, Martin Van Buren is a Democratic choice, and that picture I showed again, the watercolored version of how bad the panic was. And so he's blamed for the panic. A lot of Democrats didn't want Van Buren again, but once an incumbent president, if they want to run again, it's almost impossible for them to be stopped. In fact, it's never happened. An incumbent president who can still run again, if they want to become president again, they always get the nomination. And the closest I can think of in memory is Jimmy Carter in 1980 when Ted Kennedy ran against him. It's really never happens. That's why some people were worried about President Biden, because he is getting older. But so is Donald Trump. They're both incredibly old relative to future presidents. I mean, they're really old, and I'm old. And so, but he wanted to be president. No way could the Democrats oust him once they're incumbent. But the big issue was Texas. He really avoided making a decision on Texas because he didn't want to offend Northern Democrats, didn't want to offend Southern Democrats. But by making no choice, who did he offend? Yeah. So straddling the fence pleases nobody. And Van Buren, especially a lot of Southerners, believed he was secretly anti-slavery. They believed he really didn't like slavery and was just supporting it because he needed to keep the party unified. As it turned out, they would be correct. The Whigs have a serious problem. They're the elite who are opposed to democracy, even though they've realized democracy in some ways here to stay. And they're this permanent minority. They're either the big plantation owners of the South or the new aristocratic wealth in the North. And that's a mansion on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan in 1848, 1849. And the reason I put that up there is because they started building these mansions in the center of Manhattan. The very wealthy, they could get away from the poor areas near the tip of the island. It's right near where Central Park is now. And today, that's all buildings. And I like this one because there's nothing there yet. It's all going to be built up. They are running into this idea of Jackson and the frontier, the log cabin, that romantic vision of America, and the American dream of the planter and the common man. There's more common men than wealthy elite. What do? So they decided on a basic strategy to split off voters from the Democrats. People who are Commonwealth, working people, if they could convince them to vote for Democrats. The first way was nativism, which is anti-what? Yeah, so they used anti-Catholic bias, fear that might lose their jobs, fear of a different culture coming in, different food, different drink, different religion, whatever it might be. Use that argument, fear of immigrants, which is certainly would never be used today. And that's what I just did there. It's called lying. It's used all the time today. Build the wall. What do you think that is? It's anti-immigrant nativism. It goes back to this time. And what's the other thing? They need to find their Jackson. Sell an image of a common man. Just somebody who does all the kind of cultural identifications, dress like him, dress like a Westerner. That was always the big thing. Out in the West, out in the frontier, have a gun. Then out there with a coonskin cap. And their first try was a guy who was killed at the Alamo. After his political career ended, they tried it first with Davy Crockett. Here's the Davy Crockett Almanac, pushing this idea of he's a Whig, supporting Whig policies of helping the wealthy, helping the elite, anti-democratic, but he's acting like a common man. They had made all these tall tales of him killing a bear when he was 3 and out in the wilderness, and a combination of fighting American Indians, but also defending people like the Cherokee who want to keep their land. And this whole image of him going west as frontiersman. It just sold it. As it turned out, Crockett was kind of a knothead. Crockett wasn't the sharpest act, and he was not a good, he did not represent that well, would lose for Congress in 36, and that's why he would go to Texas to try to rehabilitate himself, got caught at the Alamo. But this is going to be the beginning of what we call, to this day, of culture wars. To talk about cultural issues. And so many people vote on some of the big cultural issues today, whether it be something like, you know, this desperation to have as many guns as possible, or do abortion rights, or to have attacks on and different issues about transgender people, especially transgender youth, or, for example, immigration. You go on abortion, you go on and on. Those are such big issues today, and people are so bitterly divided on them that would be naturally on one part or the other for economics. And the reason I put this up here is because Walt Disney in the 1950s was in real trouble, about ready to go out of business, which seems so weird today if you kind of know anything about that corporation now. And Disney made a gamble to build this thing called Disneyland. You heard it. In the orange groves, you bought a bunch of orange groves near Anaheim, California. And it would cost so much money, he needed money. So he came up with a plan with this new television network called ABC to broadcast Walt Disney World, or Walt Disneyland. They called it Disneyland Presents. And he would show little shows, and then it'd sell the park. It worked incredibly well. One of the shows was Davy Crockett. They made 3-hour-long episodes, and it was a sensation unlike anything the country has seen before or since. And that's how come Davy Crockett's going to just kind of reappear. They just kind of found somebody there. Daniel Boone, no, Davy Crockett, that's a good name. It blew up. Soon the #1 song in the world is going to be the theme song. Do you want to hear the song? The answer is yes. Are you ready? Spent like 10 minutes writing that song, and it became a #1 song. And then Bess Parker, the star of the show, which is going to become another #1 song. They said all of a sudden you could buy coonskin hats, and I like this when they literally have the skin of a raccoon. Yeah, they soon killed so many raccoons that there was a shortage of raccoons. Not making any of this up. In 1955, it became this cultural phenomenon, and that's how come people today, if I said Davy Crockett, they know him today. There's the actor with a bunch of kids in coonskin hats. Then it died, like 6 months and it was over. It's hard to find a sensation that big, and that includes like anything from Beatlemania to, you can go on to the 1970s and the CB radio mania. Hardly any of it compares. We're a little more spread out. It doesn't quite happen like that anymore. But, and let me tell you the most ultimate toy. Yeah, you could have bought Davy. Look at that thing. I got to be honest with you. Young Jay, me, would have really liked that. Like when I was in my 40s. Don't you think that would be pretty cool? If you're like 8? All right. Oh, and we're not going to have a nuclear weapons. Okay, so let's get to the Whigs. So the Whigs founder Andrew Jackson, William Henry Harrison. Remember the Battle of Tippecanoe? And that, their plan, let's get a Jackson. He did fairly well in 1836, so let's get William Henry Harrison. He has that reputation of a frontiersman. People remember Tippecanoe in the Battle of the Thames, where Tecumseh's forces would ultimately be defeated and Tecumseh would die fighting for his rights. But he's this big hero. And the problem was he was incredibly rich. He was a wealthy man from a wealthy patrician family. He had a massive plantation in southern Indiana, right on the Ohio River. He was incredibly wealthy. They just hid that and talked about him as the frontiersman, him as the General Jackson. They could use the same thing. And then he could use that Western to get some Democratic votes. And they really pushed it. Really pushed that image. And they totally avoided the issues. So somebody said, hey, what about Texas? He could say, the Battle of Tippecanoe. And everyone, yeah, we won. What about the panic? The Battle of the Thames. And just avoid everything. And talk about these issues. And they put out these pictures of him in Western clothes, coonskin hat, etc. Now, everybody thought this man, who now by then was just turned 68 years old and was seen as far too old. Nobody has ever been that old to been elected president. He was always seen, or he's seen as too old, and he was always seen as kind of a lightweight, not very intelligent. Here's a Democratic cartoon of like puppeteers. He's a puppet being guided by Henry Clay and Daniel Webster, two of the most prominent Whigs. They avoided the issues, and it seemed to be true because he was all for Clay's American system, the bank, tariff, internal improvements. He wanted that, but they didn't talk about it. They didn't talk about Texas. They didn't talk about the panic. They talked about Tippecanoe and the West and image. They hid, they hid his mansion. They did everything they could to keep people away. And here's the thing. So policies for the elite, laissez-faire economics, to funnel money to the hands of the wealthy, technically to invest it, but also to build mansions, but give the common image. This is going to be the template for so many politicians for the rest of history. A great example would be George W. Bush in 2000. He was from one of the wealthiest families in America, very patrician, incredibly wealthy, had this massive estate, just wealth. And his dad moved to Texas to try to get rich speculating on oil, but they were from old wealth in Massachusetts. Finance. Yet they tried to portray him as a Westerner. They bought him a ranch. And he could go around and take pictures of him with a chainsaw doing stuff. This is 2000. Purely just made up. Did it work? He didn't win the popular vote, but he was elected president. And they would, I'm not saying that everybody. They all kind of do that to try to act common. Bill Clinton used to really brag on the fact that he used to like McDonald's, and that was seen as a common man. Trump does the same thing. You're incredibly wealthy from an old inherited wealth, and they have pictures of him on the Air Force One eating Kentucky Fried Chicken, like a common. Okay, so back to this. So it's cultural over economic. The economic issues that the government actually has significantly more impact than cultural, but they use that economic interest. And so their slogan, one of the great slogans in history, Tippecanoe and Tyler too. I think that's better than Rumsey Dumpsey. And John Tyler of Virginia was his vice president. And so Harrison represented the Northerners. Now, both the Northerners and Southerners hated democracy, but the Northerners were business, capital, finance. South is plantation owners. And they have different points of view. John Tyler of Virginia, another inherited plantation, old wealth, slaveholder, had over 250 slaves. He disagreed with the American system. They totally disagreed on everything except for their hatred of capital or hatred of democracy. But it showed a couple different things. First off, how the Whig Party was divided over this issue. And secondly, how they had to unify to get a national ticket. And let's be clear, Harrison, well, actually, it's Henry Clay was kind of pulling the strings. They're like, yeah, we don't want John Taylor to make any decisions. Let him be vice president. Vice presidents, what do they do? Yeah, they break ties in the Senate and wait for the president to die. This is what we call foreshadowing. So, soon it'll be dubbed the Log Cabin Campaign. A democratically oriented newspaper, an author by the name of John L. Sullivan. He also coined the term manifest destiny. He in his newspaper would write an editorial, and he would criticize Harrison for this Western common man campaign. And say Harrison would rather sit on the front porch of his log cabin and drink hard cider and not deal with the hard decisions of this nation. He thought he was attacking him, but that was the elite style attack. That's exactly what the Harrison people wanted. Yeah, we want to act like we live in a log cabin. We want people to believe he sits around and doesn't drink champagne, he drinks hard cider. And it worked perfectly. They quickly built a log cabin on his plantation, so you couldn't see his mansion. And every once in a while, Harrison would sit on in a rocking chair, and he hated wearing it, but he'd wear kind of a rawhide coat and kind of sit there. And then reporters would come by, and they would visit him, and he'd offer them hard cider. They did the whole thing. Here's a cartoon then of log cabin, hard cider, militia. Common men make up the militia. The log cabin and hard cider almanac, this Whig book that has kind of basic information, but it's a campaign book. It worked perfect. They could sell that image. So the Democrats that really were starting for the common man now look like the elite. It backfired so badly. And yeah, I'm thinking of all how many times that elite campaign would backfire. And the Democrats would turn around, or the Whigs would turn around and say Martin Van Buren, old Kinderhook, is really the elite. So this is little kid's toy. You have a little view piece, and you look through, and you would turn a picture. So this is 1840s. So here's one side, here's the other side. And to give the illusion of movement, like a little cartoon back and forth. It's 1840, so it was great in 1840. And here's Martin Van Buren smiling, look at him all happy, drinking a beautiful goblet of White House champagne, a drink of the wealthy. And yet, what happens here? Look at his face, and it says WHH, William Henry Harrison, an ugly mug of log cabin hard cider. So he drinks the drink of a commoner and ugh. He really started poor, and it totally backfired. Then, one of the first now kind of this modern campaign. So Jackson people, for early democracy, they would go door to door, they would talk to people, they would have the beginnings of kind of campaign rallies. This one is organized top down. They do a big parade. They go through towns, and they would have log cabins and people carrying log cabins, and bands would play. And they would make a parade. People come out and join it for this big show. And at the end of the parade, they'd have food, speeches, but barrels and barrels and barrels of what? So people could drink. Remember who got you this? William Henry Harrison and the Whigs. My favorite campaign ploy was the Whig rolling ball. This big leather ball they would roll from town to town. Eventually there'd be a few of them. And it had slogans on them. And it would lead the parade, and everyone would cheer and follow to where the hard cider was. And it had silly sayings like, the Democratic ball sent on. To guide the ship, old tip. They used so much hard cider and other alcohol from one distillery in Illinois that to this day, the name of that distillery, a family name, is synonymous with alcohol. From the 1840 election, does anybody know? Booze. That came from the election of 1840. You ever heard the term booze? That was a family name. You have to change your name now because you really want to be named the Booze family. But the election of 1840. And so here's one. The Kinderhook fox caught. And there's Van Buren caught in a log cabin. And hard cider won't let him get out here. And since he's still following the policies of Andrew Jackson, it's going to topple the log cabin. Just go with me on that one. Here's my favorite cartoon. And actually, the Democrats were shocked that this campaign was working. It's like, you're being fooled. He's not a commoner. He's rich. But the Whigs figured out something very important. The people who decide elections don't generally pay attention to the elections. Doesn't mean they're not smart. And, some might be ignorant of the facts, but they're probably smart. But life is difficult. And they're doing life, family, and job. It's hard. The people who decide elections to this day don't really follow it very closely. And so these kind of things work. I mean, people who follow it very close, you're not going to persuade them, probably. Because nobody wants to, everyone who doesn't follow it close will try to act like they're following it. Doesn't mean you're bad, but they don't follow it to this day. I follow it close, which probably doesn't surprise you, and I'm sure some of you do, and more of you look down the road. So, my decision is made, long before. So they're not talking to me, they're talking to people on the side. And they figured it out back in 1840, and it goes to this day. It goes to this day. So, here's a red cartoon. So here's Van Buren trying to get to the White House. And you see him right here? There's a sub-treasury plan. That's mocking its economic program. Following Jackson, they're trying to get to the White House, but they see what's blocking the way. And they're telling him to go back to Kinderhook, his hometown. Old Kinderhook. And two things. First off, I love that. That pig face. You see what he's doing? Yeah, this was a big insult. So he's doing this. So he's kind of holding his nose like that. You see it? The other thing? Old Kinderhook. To Kinderhook. Go back. Old Kinderhook. And here the Democrats are saying, he's one of us. He's old Kinderhook. He's okay. That's where okay came from. Have you heard the term okay? Old Kinderhook. Yeah. So we got two things out of the election of 1840. Okay blues. Huh? It's good. All right. Copacetic. Yeah, okay. And it's the amazing about okay is worldwide. You can go anywhere if you don't speak the language or everyone knows okay. Okay. So when the election finally came out, it was a shock for the Democrats. Harrison won a national victory. He's in purple. I went out of my way to find a purple. I found one. I hate the red and blue thing. So you might also notice one thing. There's a new political party that jumped in. The Liberty Party. Anti-slavery. So Harrison won. The Democrats were shocked. There's an inauguration. And it's March, it's cold, it's sleeting, he's 68 years old. Harrison had a reputation of being a lightweight and too old. And so he wanted to show he was fit, young, and vigorous. So even though he didn't feel good, he would give the longest inaugural speech in his history to this day. And that's saying a lot. Because we had a president by the name of Bill Clinton who was infamous for being long-winded. And the longest speech to try to prove he's young, fit, and vigorous. And also, it was kind of sleeting and cold, but he didn't wear his beaver felt hat because he wanted to show he could take it. He did catch a cold. Got the sniffles, sore throat, spread to his lungs. Soon, caught pneumonia, bedridden. And William Henry Harrison, a little bit over a month after he was inaugurated, became the first president in American history to die in office. Now, I told you that story about the cold. He died of a cold or pneumonia. It almost certainly wasn't, even though that contributed to it. It was either typhus or the big killer that was spreading throughout Europe and the United States, cholera. You know where you get cholera? If you have sewage that mixes in with the water supply. Cholera is horrific. He would be the first of 3 presidents to die of that. The first of 3. So, the president is now Tyler. Tyler is president. And Henry Clay, remember, he wanted Tyler just to unify the party, but Tyler, what's Tyler going to do? Now he's president. But Clay assumed, and Clay is now running the Senate. He's in the Senate. The Whigs control the House. He will support Clay's American system. He'll keep doing it. All of Harrison's cabinet were allies of Henry Clay. They just assumed Tyler would follow along. Well, Tyler, no. Nobody told John Tyler what to do. So the first part of Clay's American system passed through Congress, an increase in the tariff and a return of the bank. And he vetoed it. The Whig president vetoed the Whig platform. Do you see a problem here? They passed it again. They vetoed it. Passed it again. Vetoed it. And they finally kicked Tyler out of the party. So the Whig president is now without a party. And here's the amazing thing. The Democrats hated him too. And so he didn't have a party. Washington technically didn't have a party, even though he was basically a Federalist. Tyler, nobody wanted the guy. And pretty soon the only people around him would be the most rabid Southern pro-slavery and pro-annexation of what? Texas, around John Tyler. Nobody liked him. Almost all his cabinet resigned in mass. An amazing situation. So, last thing we got to get. The Webster-Ashburton Treaty. Daniel Webster, one of the most famous Whigs from Massachusetts, he was Secretary of State. He negotiated a treaty with the British to finally deal with the border of Maine. To finally deal with it. And then he promptly resigned too. And so now it's all these kind of weird anti-democratic pro or plantation owners. There was a war right here. I think I typed that in. Yeah. There's a war on the border here called the Aroostook War on the Aroostook River between basically lumberjacks from Canada and lumberjacks from Maine. And I always imagine that battle of, guys in trees with double-bladed axes, jumping on other people. You gotta admit, that's kind of a cool image, right? Who's with me on that? People would pay to see that. Have you seen the movies people pay to watch now? Yeah, they pay to see that. But it dealt with the border and the Great Lakes. And now, no Secretary of State. Would you like a reading assignment? You would. Why? Because you want to read 585 to 595.
Yeah, I will.
You're trying
Yeah,
to.
you can read that.
Yes.
Oh, it's in pages.
Yes,
Yes.
we're grading you. Sorry. So if you're not more polite, you get one taken away. Not get a home law.
My social security.
That's actually kind of terrifying. You know what I'm talking about.
I know.
585 to 595. It's only 10 pages. Have a good weekend. And I mean that sincerely. 1980?
1980.
Yeah, nothing big happened. I can see nothing on my poster right there. Nothing in China.
Where's a great place to go?
In China, that's true. Yeah.
Like here it comes.
Let me think about it. Ask me out. Sound good?
No. You're crazy.
Well, it's other things. Do you really want
You're
to?
crazy.
No thanks.
No.
It is.
I have a question about one of the pictures on the PowerPoint. Like the picture of Tyler.
Yeah.
Why does that like
feel being the new
it's
minister?
really good? Like, I thought he was smart. Or was it a painting or something? Like I was just.
Let's go back.
That.
Well, first off, I took an older picture of him, so that's actually a picture. You can see it
as
big
big
place. And the camera's got noticeably better. But still, if everything was still, and they had a piece of glass with it's called silver oxide on it, and if that was really smooth and there's no imperfections in the glass, the pictures are really quite good. But it's any movie. Yeah,
Because I just remember the picture of like, Brigham Young and Joseph Smith, and it was like,
Tyler.
but remember, that one was, picture, they cut it out, and the other picture, and then they painted it. Yeah, but you're right, yeah. Have a good weekend. Who wants a quiz? It's unanimous. You guys get the 9-question quiz.
Well, I was going to, and I was like, oh, all these words we already know in class. Yeah, I think I was in a few days. On the board, I said, so yeah, it did. It did say that. And then I looked on Teams and
I got them all down.
yeah, I read that. And yeah, I just checked out Teams.
Yeah, I like it.
I have a bag.
Yeah, I was.
I did not.
Oh, I didn't. I got it.
If you want to get under that.
I'm like this far away.
Oh, that's.
One. I didn't see that. I looked for it.
Annex.
Use the main menu.
They tried to annex Texas.
Oh, why is he?
Bro, I see that song. Can you give me my alarm?
See if I can convince him to not.
Yeah, I saw it.
Who would like a quiz today? It's unanimous. I can just sense, I can feel. Quiz. Quiz me.
Last week, you missed the.
Don't help.
Yeah, I was looking at like.
Yeah, we were
We figured it out.
I know, and then I
It's like
changed
Teddy
it.
Roosevelt or something.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I decided to skip that whole Civil War thing.
19.
Nothing big happened in the Civil
Just
War.
went like 100 years.
Well, and then, yeah, I don't know where I got that. I had 9 in my head. Yeah, so I had Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah, I was like, but I think he.
Any questions on there? Okay, so there's 9 questions, but I'm gonna give you a really easy bonus.
Yes.
For me. But if I know it, you guys should know, right? You got me. All of those Kit Kats? We have to save these for. It doesn't mark you, that's what I say.
$5 solid.
No, I want my cash.
What if I get you like a
That was worth more.
$10.
Somebody, in my classes in the past, years ago, they made me a 10-pound Kit Kat from scratch. Yeah, really.
Now, I know we have a quiz today.
We still got David Quinn. But, do you want to see the 10-pound Kit Kat real fast before we get started?
Mr. Partridge,
Yes.
we're gonna do 20-pound Kit Kat more.
So there's a recipe to make Kit. It's not quite a real Kit Kat, but it looks like one. They had a lot of. They actually made 2 of them. And here it is on my webpage. I should. So, 10-pound Kit Kat. How about this? How about we save the Kit Kats you gave me and then like a big for Christmas Kit Kat? Sounds like a plan.
No,
Thank you.
I still, who am I thinking about?
When I meet everybody, I mean, you can watch me eat. That makes sense. Where were you?
Ceramics.
Whenever I see
Hanging
Mr.
up.
Lane's name, it was like Slane. All right. Half sheet of paper 1 to 9. And, oh, I got bad news. This flamingo runs through batteries. We can't, we got to find something else. It has a little thing for a 9-volt adapter, but I don't have one. But it sucks them through. We got to find something else because it'd be way too expensive. So everybody, shut your eyes. Look, I'm sorry, look at this. Shut your eyes and imagine the glowing pinkish red light. Open it. What do you see? Pinkish red, right? And the rat's still perfectly calm.
I got a picture of it.
Hey. All right, here we go. No questions? Thank you. Hold it up for everybody. For the picture. Like this. After the paper cut. Watch out for that. What's stuck in the ground? All right, here we go. Bonus question. Are you ready? I told you it'd be an easy one. Bonus question. What? Baseball Hall of Famer who played in the 1940s and into 1951 wore number 9. Want more? See, that's an easy one. It's 9-question quiz. What Hall of Famer played for the Yankees? Wore number 9. Huh? No. You're off by 6.
Man.
Extra bonus, spell my name. You get paid once for me.
All right. You ever get the bonus? Is that too easy? You want to be challenged?
C-A-T-H.
Bonus question 2. Bonus question 2. What did Mexico ban that would trigger the War of Texan Independence? What? Huh? What Hall of Famer played for the Yankees? Wore number 9. He's now retired. One of the greatest baseball players ever. When you're done, turn it over. Since we have the Alamo in there, guess who's now going to be at the Alamo? The squid of tyranny. What side would the squid of tyranny? Oh, you should rather go to Liberty. We need to go to Liberty. Then go to Liberty at the Alamo. Oh, you're the artist. Yes, please.
Somebody sent me